Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures. We're back with some big bad goodies from Traders Galaxy for their flagship game, Bot Wars. And unfortunately, the more that I saw this bag sitting here in my spare bedroom where I'm usually filming, the more I mistook it for a holiday treat. Because, well, that red wrapping paper, I'm like, it looks like some of those like chocolate-covered popcorn candy thingies that like my students are always bringing me or that my wife is picking up to give out to coworkers and stuff. But no, it is just as nice a treat. And this is the Brontoborg from the Red Star Nations. And you can see this bag seems pretty darn full. And again, like I said, I thought it was, well, something different. I thought it was nice, yummy chocolates. But the interior is just as nice. Ooh, I can smell that fresh resin. Ooh, boy. So the first thing we're greeted to is the bulk of the body. And you can see the combat cyborgs, robot machines of the Red Star Nations ready to pile out. Much like the droids of the Trade Federation. Boop. We've got the head there in full-on Dino Riders mode, which is absolutely fine with me, with his blaster cannons ready to go. Does he have mechanical eyes? I can't tell. See if I can get that a little bit better focused. I am unsure. I'm going to have to double-check on that. Wow, that is totally out of focus. There we go. Immediately, my eye spots some very nice texturing of the scales all across the body. Nice, smooth, cleanly cast resin. I do appreciate the ball joint for the body rather than, I mean, obviously it's going to look kind of ridiculous if it's, sticking out to the sides, but to me, a ball joint is just easier to connect with. That's just me, though. We have got a plethora of guns, which would even make El Guapo happy. Can't say the word plethora without thinking about a guapo. And we've got some nice sturdy feet to carry our Brontoborg forward onto the battlefield. And, lest anybody mistake it for the wrong faction, we've got that big red star there. Well, it will eventually be red on both of the legs. I'm going to assume those are the hind legs. Okay, let's see here. Because the contact point for the front legs is significantly smaller than the back, as you can see. I am going to have to cheat and look online, but I think just kind of glancing at it, these double-barreled batteries right here seem to want to go in these two spots. The large, long-range cannons are probably going to go right there. I am assuming some kind of gun is going to attach to the side. Anything on the tail? No, just a big spiked mallet. And then, I'm assuming these are going to be like anti-aircraft guns or something on the back to give it some supporting fire. Alright, so that seems to be about the gist of it. I am going to grab all these parts here and get my table cleaned up. We are going to get our Brontoborg all put together. We'll grab some other Bot Wars models and we'll show you how it turns out. And I, for one, cannot wait to see the results. So sit tight. And the mighty Brontoborg lumbers on to the screen. So yeah, you know what? Actually, this wasn't as bad as I was expecting. I mean, obviously, the parts are pretty large, so it wasn't like it was going to take a whole lot of a challenge to get everything put together, and probably should have them on a base there. It was just kind of, I did actually look at the website, I will admit, but it was pretty intuitive figuring out which guns go in which areas. It was just, I wanted to double check. Obviously, we wouldn't want to have those cannons aiming down, that wouldn't make sense. But this guy is just, he is seriously hitting some nostalgia for me. I grew up when the Dino Rider toys were still coming out, when those were new and fresh. And I remember our local toy store had some, and it was always one of those things out of my price range, and probably still is, because I don't want 40-year-old toys now. But it always was just cool as hell. I loved the concept of them. So the Red Star Nations, big bad dinosaurs, are something right up my alley. And I already got a lecture from my kid about the fact that their tails are so low to the ground. And, poor General Melkov here in his nice plant eater with its tail facing downwards. He says, like, oh, it's not possible. So, yeah. Gives you a good idea of the size, grabbing some actual Bot War bots. You can see our Brontoborg is going to definitely be putting up an impressive fight, and it's going to make a nice centerpiece for the army. I mean, I think at this moment, and probably moving forward, it's going to be one of the longer pieces for sure. I think the Junkers, if I remember their name correctly, have their big Trashosaur or whatever, Junkosaur, kind of Godzilla, kaiju looking mech. One of these days I'm going to get that thing. Every time I find it, something comes up and I'm not able to get it, but one of these days I will. I promise you that, even though I've got the Bot Wars starter set still sitting around waiting to get put together, but one thing at a time, right? I may have mentioned in past videos that the glue I had did not want to cooperate. I did not have this issue this time around. I scored everything nice. I say the biggest challenge was just kind of getting the legs lined up. That's always a challenge with any kind of quadrupedal creature, and having things, nicely, properly balanced. So I'm glad that worked out okay. But you can see here, it's going to be an interesting dynamic having the smaller Red Star Nation models. They do have not many, but they do have a couple of the little mech overlords. I don't remember what they're called exactly, but the mechs that the Brontoborg is carrying, they have little infantry stands of those guys. I know they have raptors of various sorts, and they have the kind of mask-styled vehicles that accompany the army, as well as I think there's like T-Rexes and Stegosaurs and Triceratops, or at least there used to be in metal. I have to double check on the resins. I know there are quite a few resin models that were released at the same time as these guys. We'll get to them slowly but surely, and I'll have to double check on that myself. My first thought, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with the actual Bot War game, but are eyeballing this and thinking, what could I use a ridiculously big sauropod covered in cannons with? And if you're thinking epic scale stuff, I think you are a very smart person, because I think that would look absolutely fabulous as you have, piles of troops, attempting to put this thing out of its misery. My Emperor's Children stuff here from KMFP Designs. I believe it's KMFP. KMFDM? No, that's the band. Anyway, but yeah, I think there's a lot of potential for this thing, even if you don't necessarily play the game that it's intended for, but that's always the sign of a cool model anyways. I mean, a cool model is going to stand on its own merits just for the inherent fact that it's cool. A cyborg sauropod with big long-range cannons and hangar bays of mechs in its belly, that says cool to me. So if you disagree with me, then I'm sorry, but there's something wrong with you, perhaps. But it is a nice-looking figure. I think in terms of, it's going to paint up pretty nice and easily. I've got at least everything kind of figured out with the leaders, so I can go from there. And once this is all done, then it's going to be time for the grunts. But we are slowly but surely building up this army of the Red Star Nations, and I'm not sure who it's going to be tangling with first. I do have obviously, if I have the starter set hanging around, I do have a fair amount of both the Valiants and the Deceivers painted, so I don't know, we can have a three-way battle in our household. That'll work, but one thing at a time, we have to get everybody painted. So if you haven't had a chance, by all means, go take a look at that link below. We will have a link there, because I'm going to type it myself, as I'm kind of thinking out loud while I'm speaking. But yeah, you can check out some of the other stuff in Traders Galaxy's vast and varied catalog. And if you don't want to have giant dinosaurs, there's always the also giant mutant space aliens, if that's your thing as well. Again, just some fun models that definitely have some interesting cross-compatibility ideas for them. So, with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.